Thank you very much. Pat Mahern from Leonard, which is the network of higher education colleges in the BMW region. I noticed that you mentioned Heidelberg University, but no reference to the Fachhochschulen, which are the analogue of the Institutes of Technologies. You call them Universities of Applied Science. A very topical issue here at the moment in Ireland because of pending changes in higher education. But in the context of the creative industries, it's seen as having a lot of potential. The involvement of those industries, and particularly startups within that sector, with higher education, the availability of people with the requisite knowledge and skills and competencies, the kind of people that tend to determine what an innovation policy is for an industry sector. Could you comment on that, please?
On the University of Applied Sciences, the University of Applied Sciences did play a very important role for the development of the Baden-Württemberg industry. I don't know whether you're familiar with the idea behind this University of Applied Sciences. Traditionally, the idea was that you have a regional concentration, maybe wood processing industry in a certain city, and then you build next to this industrial concentration this University of Applied Sciences would provide personnel and knowledge for this specific industry. And this actually has worked quite good for a while, so it was very important for the success story of the Baden-Württemberg industry up to the mid-90s. In Baden-Württemberg, the big economic problems were in the first half of the 90s, where you had this industrial restructuring going on, and in this process, the position of these universities of applied sciences was rethought. So the industry did not any longer, or was not any longer in a position to accept all the people that were graduating. So as a result, the students were not going any longer there to these universities of applied sciences, but were looking elsewhere. So it was a very difficult situation at this time. And the reorientation that took place then was to say that even these universities of applied sciences have to develop a more, I wouldn't say globalized view, but a view beyond what are the regional needs of the place. Still a significant role, but going beyond. So since you mentioned the creative industries, so one of these universities that was catering to the wood processing industry, which was going down all the time, had to reorient itself to a new field in order to get funding, additional funding, and they were banking on telelearning. So meanwhile, this University of Applied Sciences is a big specialization on telelearning, teledidactics, etc., and is not any longer catering simply to the regional market, but is trying to develop a still very practice-oriented approach, very practice-oriented, qualified people, but not any longer to a need that's only existing in the region, but going beyond, and most of the other universities of applied sciences are also going into this direction. Not meaning to tell that they're not relevant for the region any longer, but the status has changed just as the companies are supposed to rethink their position. Meanwhile, so you mentioned before, you cannot rely any longer simply on the domestic market or on big companies that then export, but you have strong relationships to this company. It does not work any longer. So Daimler, also up to the mid-90s, had a very strong supplier network in the region. A lot of the suppliers had Daimler as their main customer. And so the second half of the 90s, Daimler was saying, no, this does not work any longer. So we have this huge competitive pressure coming from the world market, and we need very highly innovative products, and we are not sure that you will be able to provide them for us if you only have something in relations with us. So if you want to stay with us as a supplier, what you want to see is that you also have other customers, and this is necessary, and customers in other areas, customers in other regions, and we want to see that you have a research and development portfolio, which a traditional supplier until the 90s, even in Baden-Württemberg, did not have. Some had, but it was not the rule that all medium-sized suppliers in the automotive industry actually were doing research and development, but they were waiting that Daimler was saying, now we need a new kind of tool and need something new to make something click, and then they were trying to develop something new, and then they were selling it, and then waiting until something new come up. But meanwhile, it's also like a demand that they have to reorient them in this direction.
Okay.
So,
sorry, we'll take any other questions? Anyone else? Yes, Terry.
Thought about maybe an advantage that we have within this region that we need to also tap into. There may be relevance to the Baden-Württemberg regional clustering as well, I'm not sure. But I mean, one of the big advantages I think we have here in the Western region and in the BMW is a diaspora internationally who have had to emigrate and who have done incredibly well. We met a large group of people from Cleveland, Ohio, there last week, associated with the Cleveland Clinic, and they're the world-leading cardiovascular research and clinical centre, and lots of them hail from the west of Ireland. There's a huge Mayo connection in Cleveland in particular. So I think if we can really, and there's lots of other examples in Silicon Valley and in Boston and other places in the world, and so I think if we can tap into our diaspora, tap into people who've emigrated and who've done incredibly well and who have still a very strong fondness and connection to the West, then I think that could really help in our regional innovation.
More comment, it's probably, they're aware about the huge Irish diaspora all over the world and from a history of very significant immigration from Ireland, and I suppose it's to tap in to those people, many of whom have a certain affinity and sympathy with Ireland. So it's a lot of organisations are just trying to tap into that here in Ireland. Any other final comments, or do you want to respond to that, folks? Sorry, gentleman here, I'll take that. Down here, bottom right.
I think you probably do. I just wanted to know, did the success... I'm just wondering, did the success in your area, did it impact on the focus of education at beyond the third level, at first, at primary and secondary level? Did it have an impact in terms of the direction of schools and colleges at primary, and did it make any changes?
Difficult. I mean, actually, the curricula in our schools are permanently reoriented, but I think in this process of reorientation, other issues are important. Also, we at the university, we are also at the moment in the Bologna process, redoing all our curricula, but this has little to do, less to do with what we focus, what kind of regional changes are at the moment are going on. I would not see any immediate effects. The problem that we are having, there is also some kind of rain actually in Baden-Württemberg also, because Baden-Württemberg kind of produces more qualified people than are actually staying there. So in Stuttgart, for example, more qualified people are leaving than are getting in. And meanwhile, in Germany, there is a big problem with engineers. So we're looking for engineers. In the 90s, these universities of applied scientists that were producing an immense number of engineers were partly shut down because in the mid-90s there was no need for more engineers. Now there's a tremendous need for more engineers that cannot be fulfilled by our region. This is maybe has something to education, the students want to become engineers. They want to do something more creative. So they are, if you look at our universities, they want to do something with new media, with renewable energies. These are the big things. So there are not enough positions available to do something with renewable energies, but this is, for example, one of our real success studies that we have in our University of Stuttgart. So.
Okay, I'll take. Is there any final question? Sorry, lady down there in the back left. Let's go. Okay.
Jill McNamara for Canton. It's a question for Gerhard. Can you just clarify if your region has an overall economic development agency, or are the promotion strategies undertaken by a collaborative effort of smaller agencies in different support levels?
On the state level, the state of Baden-Württemberg does not have an economic promotion agency. So there's a Ministry of Economic Affairs, but this Ministry of Economic Affairs does not see as its kind of mission to foster innovation as such. But most of the innovation promotion activities do take place on a regional level. And each region, there are 7 regions in Baden-Württemberg, each region can have a regional economic development agency. In theory, all regions have, but the only really functioning one is the one in Stuttgart, where you could say that they have developed a real good portfolio as a region, where they want to bring the region of Stuttgart forward and do something. I mean, in the other areas, of course, things are happening as well, but not so much on the regional level, but there it's more left to the individual cities, the local communities, etc. What they're doing, but there's no overall concept for the state of Baden-Württemberg.
Sorry, I just have one more question. When it comes to developing innovation within companies in the region, with regard to startups and established companies, is it generally the same support systems that they're accessing through the same agencies, or are there again a number of agencies and institutes?
Baden-Württemberg is characterized by a certain institutional thickness. So there are a huge number of organizations that you can address if you have problems. So we've also made a survey about what are companies actually doing. If a company has a small, medium-sized company has a problem, the first point of access is the local Chamber of Commerce. So our local Chamber of Industry and Commerce have consultancies, have support, have a support infrastructure, and this is the cheapest way to get help. As a second tier, we do have the so-called Steinbeis institutes. So Steinbeis institutes can be at universities of applied sciences, but also at real universities. These are professors who think that they have a special expertise that can be used by industry, and industry can access it, but it's a little more expensive. It's so expensive, it's a little more expensive, so the threshold is higher, and as we've already heard before, universities have a different logic than business, and especially small and medium-sized businesses have a very different logic than a thing like a university, but there is really more highly admired and very often copied, but never really successfully copied system of the Steinbeis centers. It's only Baden-Württemberg, so they've also internationalized meanwhile, so maybe there's even a Steinbeis center in Ireland, I don't know, but they have been internationalizing themselves since the mid-90s. And as a third tier, with respect to technology transfer, we have the Fraunhofer Institutes, which are centers for applied science. They do not any teaching, so Center for Applied Sciences, but so they do not have the problems that universities have with closeness to the industry, but they are even more expensive, of course. Therefore, a small and medium-sized company usually would not go to a Fraunhofer company, but Daimler, of course, does a lot of things. For example, Uwe or other more bigger and medium-sized companies would address this problem with a system. Besides, you have the private, so I've mentioned here kind of public technology transfer instruments that are available, but then you would still have a couple of private institutions as well.
Okay, so if that's it, I think I'll draw the session to a conclusion.